There we are, thank you. Right, so what I thought we'd just start briefly by looking at Rachel and her horse, and me just sort of explaining a little bit about Ryder's position and working a little bit with Rachel on how Bailey's going. So maybe if you want to trot him on, Rachel. Just gets him used to the surroundings. Obviously, it's quite a difficult ring for the horses to suddenly come in such a small enclosed ring. I mean, it's all very good education for them. You know, the more you can take horses into different places with different atmospheres, the more they will gradually get used to it. And, you know, so much of the training we do, especially with the event horses, getting them to, you know, get up to that top level, is about teaching them to trust us as humans and to work with us, to use their energy to work with us rather than against us. And it's building up that trust. If you just trot on a little bit more forward, Rachel, just let him get sort of, that's right, keep his energy flowing on. It's very tempting when you're on a horse that's a little bit tense to hold them a bit tight and think, oh, you know, they're very tense, I must be ever so careful. But it's best really to try and let them get rid of a bit of their energy, as long as they're not going to sort of explode and gallop off. But just let him even more, a little bit more forward trot, Rachel. Just let him trot on, using himself a little bit more. That's right. And you'll find that'll help him relax much more than if you keep him tight and short. And that's right, not flowing on. So that's right. Keep the trot going nice and forward. Well done. So Rachel, looking at her position, she's sitting very nicely. She's got a good straight back, with thinking ahead to cross-country riding as a sort of an event rider. Our position is so important, not only for our own security, so that we don't sort of go and fall off as soon as something goes wrong, but also from the horse's point of view. The better you sit, the more imbalanced you'll be, and therefore, you know, you're much more comfortable for the horse. You really, on top, as a rider, want to be, in a way, as insignificant as possible. I mean, you're there to sort of be telling your horse what to do, but you don't want him to be having to think about you all the time because you're a bit wobbly, a bit out of balance, holding the rein a bit tight, you know, doing different incorrect things on top. You want the horse to be able to just go on and not worry about you on board. You know, to say, okay, he's reliant on you to give him the direction as to what is wanted. If you just ride a little bit more into your corners now, Rachel. So just one thing that's about Rachel's position, still a little bit more forward. You're still not really trotting on, letting him trot on. Especially when you're loosening, sort of like warming a horse up. You know, they need to be trotting on forward, over their back, to really get those muscles working and to soften them up. And just try to not ride, Rachel, around your corners. Sometimes got a little bit too much right bend. Just more ride the shoulder around the corner. Keep him very straight up each straight line. Keep him straight, and then round the next corner. And then think of riding him straight, and then round the next corner. Whereas you were tending to ride with an inside bend, sort of all the way along the long side. Not that there's a very long side in here, but along the bit of straight bit, you are still riding with an inside bend. So make sure you keep him straight and forward. Again, keep thinking to yourself, I must keep that trot going on forward. Good. Well done. Because he's a big horse, he's got quite a nice movement, good sort of naturally good swingy trot. And if ever he starts going, he tends to sometimes going a little bit up and down, which to me, it's not that he's lame, you know, although you can see as he's trotting along how his head's going a little bit up and down each stride. And that often, you know, if it's not a lameness, it's what's called, they can be bridle lame. So it's more just a slight sort of stiffness in their body which creates a little bit of up and down with the head carriage. If it persists, just try changing your sitting diagonal now, so you're on the wrong diagonal. And you'll see that'll totally level him up, so he's not then doing it. It makes their heads sort of more still. So trot along like that for a little while, then go back onto the correct diagonal and see if he can maintain that level trot. You see how you just see he just gets a little bit of a swing back again this way when she's on. So I would, with him, that's it, do quite a lot of changing your diagonal onto the wrong diagonal. I don't know how horsey all the crowds are as far as knowing if you know what I'm talking about, being on the diagonal, but I'll just explain briefly for the people who don't know. When you're trotting around on a horse doing rising trot, you should be riding on the correct diagonal. You should be sitting down as the horse's inside hind leg is coming to the ground, and rising as the outside front leg's going forward. Whereas you see Rachel is now on what's called the wrong diagonal. She's rising as that inside front leg's going forward, which is incorrect, but it's what I've asked her to do to help level her horse out a little bit. So keep also then changing back onto the correct diagonal and see, if he can then still stay level in that trot. As soon as you feel him starting to hop a little bit again, go back to the incorrect diagonal. Right, let's just have a little look at him on the other rein. So if you can change the rein somehow, that's it. So the only little thing to me about Rachel's position that I feel would be quite good if she could just, it's only very minor, but she a little bit twists her feet out at the end of the stirrup. There's got a slightly toe out, which then makes it so that she is, obviously the more you ride with your toe out, the more your heels then against their side, and she's slightly digging in her spur on each stride, and really the more you're doing that, the more you're slightly dulling the horse's sides. You want their horse's sides to stay nice and responsive from your leg. So if you try, Rachel, to straighten up your foot, sometimes people who ride with their toes out press down with the inside of their foot in their stirrup, and that's what twists their foot out. So if you think of trying to press down with the outside of your foot in the stirrup, it brings your toes round a bit. But it's a habit. It's very difficult if you've ridden with your toes out for a long time and nobody's told you. You get used to riding in that position. It's very difficult to suddenly change. But it's just something that maybe Rachel can take away, and if she's wanting to really improve her lower leg position, she can work away on that over the next few weeks. And then eventually, she will learn to ride always then with her foot sort of parallel. Okay, so let's have a little canter, Rachel. So when you're ready, if you canter him on. Good. So he is very responsive from her leg. That was a nice transition into canter. Nice and smooth and forward. Good. Again, make sure he's straight up the straight bits and just curved for the corners. Try not to keep too much inside bend all the time. Good. So keep him a little bit rounder in front and then... Oh, good boy. Oh, it's very scary in here. So that's right, a little bit rounder and then slightly more forward the canter. Slightly more forward, that's right. Let him think of trying to cover the ground a bit more each stride. Just helping him to sort of relax. That's right, keep him going forward a bit more. Good, well done, that's right. Excellent, so that's nice. He's got a lovely active canter. His hind leg comes quite well underneath him as he's cantering along, which then creates a good balance. The more a horse can step under with their hind leg, the more they'll be, the more balanced they'll be, because they'll be carrying themselves more with that hind end. The more a horse canters with his, what we call, when they're not engaged, with their hind legs further away from them, the more unbalanced they'll be, the more difficult it is for them to canter that little bit more collected and to cope with corners and that sort of thing. But he's got a good balanced canter. Okay, Rachel, if you could change the rein and we'll just have a little look at the canter the other way. Good boy. Ooh. That was all very exciting. I don't know what he did then. Just a bit excited and then skitters along. Good boy, baby. So I just sort of talk to him a bit, give him the odd pats, just help him to relax. Okay, now try and ride a little bit into your corners and then your straight lines rather than constantly round on a curve. That's right. Good, and straight line. Good boy. He's being very good, really, because he's obviously finding it quite worrying in here, but he is coping pretty well. Well done, good, that's fine, that's looking great. So he seems to have a good bend through his corners. When you're going through a corner with a horse, they should have a nice consistent bend right through from their head, right through neck, shoulder, back, through to their tail. And they shouldn't sort of be just bent in front and have a stiff body. There should be a nice length bend right through their body. And that's what will help keep them balanced and smooth around their corners. That's right, so just careful as you go around the corners, Rachel, not to just pull too much with your inside rein. Think of riding him around. So to say to people, think when you're coming towards the corner, start to prepare the bend before the corner, so that when you come to the corner, you've already achieved a little bit of neck bend, and then you can ride around the corner using your inside leg to keep them out, your outside leg obviously behind the girth to keep control of the quarters, so the quarters don't flick out as you go around the corner, and keep a bit of sort of weight with your outside rein. So you're riding them from your inside leg into your outside rein around the corner, but you still then maintain that inside bend. That way they're at their most sort of balanced. Okay, Rachel, that's fine. If you want to just come back to trot. So just get a nice trot, nice and forward. Remember that he tends to draw back a little bit when he's nervous. So you then should react the other way. Think, well, I know he's going to try and go a little bit steady, so let me just ride him on forward a bit. Good, and just careful with that leg as you're sitting. Try not to go squeezing up with your heel each time you sit. Try and keep that heel down. If he needs a bit more leg, just give him a little sharp nudge with both heels and then keep your legs still. But as I say, they shouldn't be like a bicycle that you keep pedaling to keep them going forward. They should trot forward on their own and what we call in front of your leg. If they start hanging back and you find you're having to use your leg a bit more, that means they're trying to go behind the leg. So to prevent that, you must be quick as a rider to sort of recognise that they're hanging back a bit and give them a sharp nudge with both heels to get them forward in front of your leg. And if they start to hang back a little bit and slow down, apply a bit of pressure. If there's no reaction, a sharp kick. They must learn to respond just from a little bit of pressure. Right, okay then Rachel, if you come back to a walk. Great, lovely, and then just let him have a bit of a stretch, nice and down. It's important when you're working your horses, okay, especially young horses, it's when we start trying to work them into an outline, do pieces of work, but then do allow them then a break, allow them time to stretch their neck, open up their body. If you think what we're doing is asking them to be in quite a sort of really unnatural position, to be round, they don't trot around the field on the bit, do they? Well, very few horses do. They'll naturally trot much more open. We're suddenly teaching them to come in this more engaged sort of outline with their hind legs more underneath them and rounder in front. So you have to sort of remember, especially the younger horses that haven't been worked a lot like that, always let them have a good time to stretch on a regular basis. Obviously the older they get, the more you work them, the more they develop the correct muscles, so it becomes easier and easier for them. But even so, they must stretch. And important in our dressage tests, we have a free walk on a long rein at the lower levels, and then at the high levels of an extended walk. So it's part of teaching them for your dressage test that they must learn to be able to stretch their head and neck down and take the nose forward and take the rein contact forward. So, right, okay, let's get on to a bit of jumping. Not that there's much room to jump in here, but I'm going to do a couple of little exercises with Rachel that all of you can practice at home. Any of you who ride or have got a pony or a horse at home, there's just a couple of little exercises for you to practice as well. So we're going to start off with 2 poles, and we're going to have them on a circle. So what I'm wanting you to do, Rachel, in a minute when we're organised, is to pick up canter, and I want you to include these 2 poles as you're cantering around the arena. And ideally, what you're wanting to try and achieve, because it might seem quite basic, quite an easy thing to do, to canter over a pole. That's right, just out as far without, just so that she can still go around the ends. That's fine. Lovely, thank you. So what you're wanting to do is to be able to canter over a pole with the horse maintaining the same rhythm. So you're cantering along nice and even, around, and the pole then just is included in the canter stride. That they don't, when they see the pole, suddenly accelerate, or they come to the pole and they jump quite high over it, you know, which they might do to begin with. But it's just, that's good, just teaching them to include the pole within the canter stride, and for the rider to be able to ride to the pole. Rachel's doing a great job, you know, she can see her stride to the pole pretty well. Bailey's very good at condensing his stride, and so they're making this exercise quite easy. Make sure you stay in the middle of your poles, Rachel. Be quite strict with yourself to jump that yellow bit in the middle. Good, and she's looking where she's going, she's turning her head. Bailey's very relaxed, quite enjoying himself here. So that is very good, well done. Good. Okay, if we just change the rein now, Rachel, just let's have a little canter around the other way and check he's equal that way. And we're going to sort of increase on this exercise in a minute, but using poles on the ground, it just keeps the horses really thinking about their feet, being careful and sort of nimble with their feet, you know, keeping their brain occupied, and, you know, leading on when they're then on jumping bigger fences, trickier combinations. You know, they've got to think for themselves. They've got to think where their feet are and to be able to sort of help you out. Excellent. Well done. This is looking very good. Okay, perfect. If you were now, Rachel, that's lovely. Now we're going to introduce another pole now, and we're going to so have them. I think we could bring in both poles because Rachel's doing such a great job. You know, depending on how your horse is coping or how you as a rider, how you're managing to ride to the poles. You know, if you're finding it quite hard, just add a third pole first. Get used to riding around the 3 poles and then add a 4th pole. But Rachel's making it look easy. So what I want you now as well, Rachel, is to be quite aware of the stride pattern between the poles, what your horse is doing if you're cantering along, how many strides your horse is taking. And the same with everybody watching. If you count her strides between each pole when she's cantering, and we'll see what happens when she comes on a nice, normal, even canter, how many strides Bailey takes. Oops. Oops. Just try and get them even. Try and adjust his stride so that you're not arriving at a half stride anywhere, that you're coming on and it's all working evenly. Okay, just a little bit more forward so you're coming on a nice even stride. Okay, if you just whoa when you're ready. Okay, if you whoa. Now, how many strides were you doing there, Rachel? 4 or 5, that's right, okay. Now, what I want you to do is go on 4 each segment. So you need to be effective as a rider, and I'm wanting you to keeping in the middle of the poles, and I want you to make sure you ride on 4. One, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Okay, if you just whoa when you're ready. And that to me looked a much nicer canter. If what would have been good maybe if you'd started off doing that. You're very good at shortening him. He's good at shortening. And I noticed watching you, when you very first started, you were going on more 4, and then you went to start to be going on 5 all the time. You know, just let him, you know, ideally it would have been great if you would have just gone on 4 straight away, but, you know, it doesn't matter, that's fine. Now what I want you to do is now to adjust your stride pattern in each segment. So I want you to go, we'll do 4 strides in one segment, because you find it easier to shorten them. We'll go 4 strides in one, 5 in another, 4 in the next, 5 in the next. Okay, so you need to be, you know, do things as a rider to be able to get to, and I want it to try and make it so it's really even. So when you get to the pole is there in that next canter stride, and it's not having to suddenly do a little half stride to make it work. So, one, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. Okay, if you woo a minute. Excellent. So now we're going to go the other way, and I'm wanting you now to get the canter a little bit more open. I'm wanting you to do 4 strides in one segment, 3 in another segment, 4 in the next, 3 in the next. So Bailey's going to enjoy this. A bit more action. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well done. That's good job. So anyway, good little exercise to practice. You're making you as a rider aware of what your horse is doing stride-wise, making you be effective, because it's not going to work unless you do something. So making you be effective. Also very good for the horse to learn to accept being shortened, being lengthened, and it not to be a problem. Not as you start shortening them, they start fighting the rein, or not when you lengthen them that they shoot off and buck or something. So anyway, but generally I'd just say if you Rachel, I nearly called you Lauren then, that was, sorry, Rachel, just try generally riding him a little bit more forward when you're warming up, when you're jumping, just to, you know, just to let him open up his body a little bit. But no, that was great, well done, good job. Right, we'll get going now with a bit of proper jumping. Now, as I say, there's not a lot of room in here to do proper jumping, but we worked a little plan out where we're going to have 2 fences, which we're going to work over. Yeah, I think that's really good, possibly. So we're going to start off, just because obviously he hasn't jumped yet today, so we'll just have a little warm-up fence first. You know, even if your horses can jump big fences, important to start over a couple of smaller fences, gradually work up the height, just, you know, for, you know, for an obvious point of view of getting those muscles gradually working. You don't want to suddenly jump a big fence and, you know, risk any muscles being slightly pulled or whatever. Right. Okay. So what I'm looking from Rachel's position, I'm wanting to see her, well, we'll just watch her jump the fence and I'll sort of explain a bit about the position. So I'm afraid it's all a bit tight, Rachel, but good for your steering. Excellent. So that was nice. You see, he kept in a nice smooth trot all the way to the crossbar. and Rachel kept her lower leg. As far as an event rider and cross-country riding, you must learn to be able to ride with a strong lower leg position so that you can maintain that position of keeping your heel down, your toe up, as you jump a fence, and not, as you often see riders, they go forward with their upper body and the lower leg swings back. Now Rachel's maintaining her lower leg position well as she jumps the fence. The lower leg's not moving. That's fine if you just wait there a minute. So that's great. Lower leg position is good. And upper body, you mustn't be too forward with your upper body as a rider. Again, Rachel's doing a pretty good job at the minute, but a lot of riders will fold forward too quickly on the approach, and just as the horse is about to take off, if you think the horse is coming along, say at canter to the fence, he comes to the takeoff spot, he goes to lift his shoulders up off the ground to jump the fence. Well, if at that moment the rider suddenly goes forward, the weight is being transferred suddenly over the horse's shoulder, which is the horse is trying to lift up off the ground. So in a way, you're sort of flattening or making it more difficult for the horse to jump the jump. But it's so common fault, especially in, that Rachel's an experienced rider, but in lesser experienced riders, it's the most common thing that riders are too forward with their shoulders too quickly. Obviously you don't want to get left behind as the horse jumps the jump, but you don't need to suddenly duck down forward on takeoff. So we'll just make this into a little vertical in a minute. And then if you can manage to come at canter, you can sort of work out which reign's best for you, Rachel, coming around to this. And just wanted to make sure, I know it's obviously very tiny in here, but just be conscious of not being too in control of that canter, too squashing the canter. Let the canter just be a little bit open, but quite difficult in here because it's quite a small area. Okay, so when you're ready, if you want to canter on. Now you see there, you could have just ridden on around and you added an extra stride which made it quite awkward for him. Try and come round and ride forward to the fence. Better. Good. Okay, that was good. Now the only thing there that I can fault you with is you did go very forward with your shoulders. Try to keep your shoulders back a bit. Shoulders back. Okay, well done. So that was better. Okay, she went forward in the air, which is great. But on takeoff, she didn't duck down as much that time. So shoulders back on takeoff. Good. Okay, that's great. Just wait a minute. So that's lovely. That was much better those last two times as in control of her upper body. So remember that. Let the horse think of, as you're coming to a fence and going to, come to the takeoff spot, think of allowing your horse to come up to you. It's always a good thing. Think of allowing the horse to come up to you. So sort of close the gap between your front of your body and the top of his neck. Let him take off, and then you go with him in the air, but then straighten up as you land. So you land in a good riding position to ride away from the fence. You don't keep so forward as he lands that then you sort of are thrown forward on landing. So to straighten up, which Rachel's doing really well. Okay, Rachel, if you can now come round maybe off the left rein and pop over the oxer. And we as riders, the horse is reliant on us to steer, to come in on a good line, and also to produce the right type of canter. You won't know how fast to go. Whoop. Now again, you did a little bit of your mistake of holding on and adding too much. Now keep on coming forward, 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 forward. Well done. Okay, that was better, although it's still a bit on a deep shot. It was definitely a better rounder turn to it. Beautiful, well done. Now careful with your upper body, but that was much better. That's whoa, you whoa now, good. That was much better round there. And, our job as a rider... Okay, Rachel, if you stop now, that's fine. Our job as a rider is meant to make the whole thing as easy as possible for our horse, but often that's not the case. Often us riders, we end up getting in the way all the time. But anyway, what we're trying to achieve is to help the horse as much as possible, so when he comes to the fence, he can jump it as easily as he can, so that obviously the easier he finds the whole thing, the more he'll enjoy it. And also it's this forming this trust, you and your horse, that he trusts you, that then that builds up, and that's what will in the end get him going up to the very top level of eventing, that he trusts you, that whatever your situation you're putting him in, it's possible for him to do it safely, and that he's not going to hurt himself. So that's why you mustn't sort of abuse the trust on the way. You mustn't suddenly ask him to jump something that's much more difficult than he's ever jumped before, and frighten him, because you'll be taking big steps backwards if you do that. Just gradually build on that trust, and that's how you'll get that really good partnership going. Right, now, a little exercise we're going to do now. There's not a lot of room, but I'm wanting you, Rachel, as well as coming around and jumping the fence, I want you to, on landing, change the direction. So if we maybe come around, say, on the left rein, it's going to be quite tight, but come around on the left rein, which is therefore he's got his left leg leading at canter around here. Then I want you to jump this fence, and I want you to see if you can encourage him to land with his right front leg leading for the next corner. A horse will naturally land on whichever leg, his brain is sort of telling him whichever way his balance is, he will land with that leg leading. So obviously coming round on the left rein, more than likely, if you don't do anything about it, because he'll be coming round here, he'll land with his left front leg leading. So you as a rider, Rachel, you need to come round, make sure he is straight as straight as possible, the last stride, and as he's taking off, indicate to him, slightly open up your rein, slightly move your body, but only minimally, so that it just transfers his balance a little bit to the other side, so that he knows that you're going to be turning right when you land. And just see if you can come around left leg lead, jump the fence, land with his right leg leading, so then you can ride on nice and balanced around your right turn. And change your leg. Obviously on the left canter, you've got your inside leg on the girth, outside leg behind the girth, and you literally change your leg position over on takeoff to indicate the other way. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Well done. Good. So we'll just try that one again, maybe. Just, can you just do maybe the same way again over that? Oh, very good. Well done. Super. She's making it look very easy because he's well balanced and she's riding him well. Maybe, Rachel, can you just try it over the ox? I don't know, it's going to be quite tight around that turn. If you can you get around there, do you think? So you've got your right leg leading this time, right leg around, jump the oxer and land with the left lead. See, so it'll be quite tight for you. But say it's an exercise you can all practice, and if you can get them to, get yourself good at giving them the right aids so that they, good girl, well done, very good. Okay, that's great. Lovely. If you just for a minute now. If you practice this, get the horse used to listening to you and then landing on the correct leg lead. Obviously, when you're riding around a course, whether it's show jumping or cross country, you can make such a better job if you can be landing on the correct leg after a fence, so that then you can, if you've got a fairly tight turn after the fence, if you land on the correct leg, you can ride around that corner straight away in a really balanced way. If you land on the wrong leg, and you've got a corner quite quickly, either you've got to try and do a flying change, which might not work properly, or they end up then getting disunited and they're unbalanced around the next corner, and then suddenly the next fence is there and you're not balanced, and then that's when you might easily have the next fence down. Whereas if you can be quite conscious of being able to change the leg and the horse get used to it, that is a really good exercise to practice. Okay, so that's excellent. How are we doing for time? Are we doing time-wise? How are we doing? 5 more minutes. Lovely. Okay. Should we just go a little bit higher then? And I just want you to finish off by riding a figure of 8. Are you happy to go up, jumping a little bit taller? Sure, Bailey's much, capable of jumping a much bigger fence, but I'm aware that, it's a small area. It is a little bit slippy as she goes around the corners. I think we'll just put the oxer up a bit as well. We don't want to sort of overdo it with him. But anyway, just jump him a little bit taller. Now, as the fences get bigger, how you can help your horse as a rider is to improve the way he's cantering. I mean, Bailey's canters, he's got a very good jumping canter. He's naturally energetic. He's naturally can come in quite an engaged, energetic canter, and therefore can jump a fence well.